Sydney. Hi, thanks for coming. Yeah, just stand where you want to sit. I'm going to come down there and hand you this. Is that all right? Call the meeting to order. Call the roll.
Trustee Healy?
Here.
Trustee Katsinas?
Here.
Trustee Malani?
Here.
Trustee Compass?
Here.
Trustee Reardon?
Here.
Trustee Radishevsky?
Here.
Mayor Peacock?
Here.
I'm going to call James Swan up. He's going to recite the Pledge of Allegiance for us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, from liberty and justice for all.
Great job, James. And he came to do this because he's very interested in government, and his mom reached out, so we invited him to say the pledge tonight. Great job.
Approval of the December 19th, 2022 regular meeting minutes.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Katsinas.
I move to approve the minutes of the Board of Trustee meeting of December 19th, 2022.
Second. Any comments? Call roll.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Compass?
Aye.
Trustee Reardon?
Aye.
Trustee Radishevsky? Aye. Mayor Peacock?
Aye.
Community Appreciation Award, Ray Newman.
So tonight we're going to give a community appreciation award to Congresswoman Newman for all of her hard work in 141st Street. And let me say, I'll start by saying hello to all the familiar faces in the crowd. Haven't seen you for quite a while. Nice of you to make it. I'm sure there's a lot of you here that are surprised tonight because Congresswoman Newman and I disagree on a lot of things. We certainly disagree on, the debt and all that over the last couple of years, but we do also, while we may disagree on many things, it's important to note that there are things we agree on. And I'm not talking about the fact that we both think we do a better job than the current 6th District Congressman. We agree that the Bridge Teen Center is a great cause and does outstanding work, and we're going to honor them later. But we also agree that infrastructure spending on roads is a good use of taxpayer money. Taxpayers can't build roads themselves, and it is the government's responsibility. In this case, the reason we are here to give former Congressman Newman a Community Appreciation Award for securing $7 million in funding to widen 143rd Street. It's important to note that this has been a bipartisan effort, and the only entity that seems not to want to fix this road is the state of Illinois, and it is their road. This project was first engineered by the village with federal help about 20 years ago during the previous administration. Since I've been mayor, it's been the #1 priority project for the Southwest Conference of Mayors, which is comprised of Democratic, Republican, and independent mayors. Even Will County has prioritized this project over some of its own road projects because of the regional impact that it has. Additionally, as a village, we've spent millions to engineer this project and have offered other solutions such as jurisdictional transfer on part of it. It is unfortunate that the state, in spite of billions in funding from the federal government, still hasn't funded a project that is truly shovel-ready. This $7 million grant from the federal government, combined with village funds, will fund one section of state road. It was the village working with congressional offices that got this done. I will tell you, former Congressman Newman and her office were fully supportive of this project from the jump. I greatly appreciate it, and it will help us to get the Southwest Highway to West Avenue portion and phase that project done, which anyone knows is a pretty tricky intersection. It also shows what can happen when the focus is on solving problems rather than politics. You don't have to agree on everything to get a lot of good things done. This is one of those, and I'm grateful and thankful for former Congresswoman Newman's help and support, as well as her personal call to inform me of the grant. With that, I'll read the award. Congresswoman Newman served as the U.S. representative from Illinois' 3rd Congressional District. While serving in this district, she made a big impact in securing government funds for community projects. One of these projects is Orland Park's 143rd Street widening project. 143rd Street is one of the major east-west arteries serving the village of Orland Park, as well as its neighboring communities. From Beacon Avenue West to Wilcook Road, 143rd Street remains a 2-lane roadway and experiences congestion, safety issues, mobility deficiencies, and roadway flooding. In addition, 143rd Street lacks continuous sidewalk paths for pedestrian use. The village is leading the engineering effort for the widening of 2 of the 3 remaining segments, the Wilcook Road to Wolf Road segment and the Wolf Road to Southwest Highway segment. The village has actively pursued improvements to 143rd Street for over 20 years due to the importance of this corridor to the village and the region. Despite the village's continuous efforts with regards to this project, it took cooperation from a representative at the federal level to achieve significant progress. Congresswoman Newman spearheaded this effort and fought for this funding, which was finally passed last year. Her attention to this project will directly benefit the residents of and the visitors to our area and create meaningful improvements to our community. The Village of Orland Park would like to thank Congresswoman Newman for her dedication to this project. Without Congresswoman Newman's effort on behalf of the village, the funds would not have been secured. The Village of Orland Park appreciates her time and effort in helping our community grow. Thank you. And also, I apologize. Can you hear in the back? Okay. It's very loud up here. So as you know, this is our first time back in this room in 3 months, and there's been a lot of changes to it, including sidewalls, and there's still some sound baffles in the back that have to be done that we're waiting on supply for. There's a couple speakers over here, so the sound is not exactly perfect yet. So if you can't hear, let us know. But it's fairly loud up here, so if you need me to go higher, you just let me know if you can't hear.
Proclamation honoring the Bridge Teen Center as Orland Park's Business of the Month, January 2023.
Bear with me for just a second. So I'd like to, at this time, thank the Bridge Teen Center, which we've named the Business of the Month. It's been a little while since we've done the Business of the Month because we haven't been in this room. I know that the Bridge Teen Center, first off, the Bridge Teen Center does phenomenal work, and I know part of the funding as well that Congresswoman Newman secured was some funding for the Bridge Teen Center and the programs that they do. I can tell you that with everything that's happened since the pandemic, and then combine that with the inflation and everything else that businesses are experiencing, fundraising has been challenging. And it's challenging. Trust me, it was challenging for me. It was probably challenging for Congresswoman Newman. It's challenging but it's also challenging for all of our charities as well. And the Bridge Teen Center is a phenomenal cause for any of you who haven't been there. I'm hoping maybe you should arrange a tour because of that, and not has everybody on the board been there yet? Yeah. So, and maybe we can see the new things that you're doing there now as well. So, one of their big fundraisers, of course, was the Chef's Auction, which we all really enjoyed, raised a lot of money, but restaurants just don't have enough staff to do that. So thank you again for helping getting them some funding, and then I'd like to proclaim them as the Business of the Month. So whereas the Bridge Teen Center opened its doors in Orland Park in 2010, and to date has served over 10,000 students, and whereas the mission is to provide free programs during, after school, and unsupervised hours when students can develop mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually in a safe environment. The vision of the Bridge Teen Center is to provide teens with a place to find hope, purpose, and direction. And whereas the Bridge Teen Center serves students in the 7th through 12th grades and also provides ongoing programs and resources to help parents navigate through the teenage years. Whereas in 2015, the Bridge's anti-bullying initiatives helped earn Orland Park's National Livability Award from the U.S. Conference of Mayors. And whereas the Bridge Teen Center relies entirely on volunteer and financial support in the community to keep the programs running. Currently, the funding comes from the Bridge Thrift Store, 31%, foundations, 26%, business entities, 25%, and individual donors, 18%. And whereas the Bridge Teen Center takes every investment in their mission to heart and strives to maximize each and every dollar they receive, they are proud of the fact that for every dollar donated, 91 cents directly support the students they serve. Now, therefore, I, Keith Peekbaugh, Village President of the Village Board of Park, Illinois, and the counties of Cook and Will, do hereby proclaim Monday, January 16, 2023, as the Bridge Teen Center Business of the Month of the Village Board of Park. Come on up.
And I brought down the microphone so you could tell people what you do, because this is broadcast live, so anything we can do to help get you more donations is great. Now, how many towns do your students come from?
So we have students that come from, and to date, we've actually had over 11,500 students. They just come from everywhere, and our job readiness program has blown up. And so we're just really excited to continue offering all of our programs for free. I think that's what a lot of people don't understand. It's all free for teens. And they come from all over, and we just have such tremendous growth, and especially our students are really facing a lot of mental health issues. I hate to see it, but through the pandemic, there wasn't almost a month that go by that we had to help a family through a suicide situation and so forth. And so, once again, thank you so much, Congressman Newman. The work that we do is growing our leaders that will soon sit here. And that's so important. And so we just want to thank you. We want to thank the community. We were built by the community and for the community. 91% goes directly to our programs. And we just want to say thank you for always being a support. The village has always been a tremendous support, cheering us on. And so thank you so much. And we're hoping to open a second thrift store soon to continue revenue, because fundraising has been really tough. But we're going to do our best, and we're in here for the long haul. We're never giving up, because we don't give up on them.
Great, well, thank you. And I will add, for those of you who haven't been there, it's a phenomenal facility. And for those who may be watching or are here, or maybe you don't have anybody that needs that help, but we know there's plenty of families that have kids that are at risk, that are 14 or 15 years old, that maybe don't have a place to go for a couple hours a day. This is a safe place for them to go for a couple hours a day, where they'll also learn skills. So encourage people that are in this situation to go visit the Bridge Teen Center and see if they can provide the help and support that you need, or that they need, because we don't need, as our police would tell you, we don't need the kids running around without any supervision, and much better to be in a safe environment where they're learning skills.
Well, just really quick to let you know, and I don't think you know this, we actually have national recognition, and we literally about once a month have someone from across the United States come. We've had 3 people recently from Texas come up to be able to do a teen center. I'm actually, 4 people are coming up in a couple weeks from up in Michigan. So they're coming from all over here to Orland Park to see the Bridge Teen Center. And if it wasn't for our generous volunteers in the community, it would make it happen. But we are a beacon of hope throughout the nation. So
I did actually know that, and I do actually have several friends that are on the board. And so again, it's just a phenomenal cause anywhere in the country, but it's right here in Orland Park. So please support the Bridge Teen Center.
The Veterans Commission appointment.
Mr. Chairman, Trustee Milano.
I move to advise and consent the appointment of Stephen Baccio to the Veterans Commission. Second.
Any questions or comments? Call roll.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Rashevsky.
Aye.
Mayor Peacock.
Aye. You want to come on up? Come on, get your steps.
Congratulations. Well, first I want to thank Steve for stepping up and serving with the Veterans Commission. I know Daryl's smiling back there because he needs more volunteers to help. Our Veterans Commission does amazing work, whether it's our, the events that we do that you guys are familiar with, Memorial Day, Veterans Day, and all that, but also the boxes that we send over to the troops and all the other events that we do for the folks at Mantino and all of that. And it really is the Veterans Commission that volunteers and then brings volunteers. So thank you very much for stepping up and for your service to the country. Because to be a member of the Veterans Commission, you have to be a veteran yourself. So raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Stephen Baccio,
Having been appointed
having been appointed
to the office of the Veterans Commission
to the office of Veterans Commission
in the Village of Orland Park,
in the Village of Orland Park,
in the counties of Cook and Will, aforesaid,
in the counties of Cook and Will, aforesaid,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
do solemnly swear I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of the Veterans Commission
of the office of the Veterans
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. Thank you very much.
Accounts payable from December 20th, 2022 through January 16th, 2023 approval.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Healy.
I move to approve the accounts payable from December 20th, 2022 through January 16th, 2023 in the amount of $5,933,915.95.
Second. Second. Any questions or comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Rashevsky.
Aye.
Mayor Peacock.
Aye.
Consent vote, or excuse me, consent agenda.
Item A, payroll for December 22nd, 2022 and January 6th, 2023 approval. Item B, main pump station, pump number 3, replacement rejection. Item C, replacement of police vehicles purchase proposal.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Compass.
I move to approve items A through C of the consent agenda. Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Rashevsky.
Aye.
Mayor Peacock.
Aye.
2023 Villa West Orland Heights Streetlight Survey option for vote.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Rashevsky.
I move to approve proceeding with option C to install all proposed streetlights within the Villa West Orland Heights subdivision.
Second. And before I call the roll, I'll point out that we sent out postcards to those subdivisions. Some of the subdivisions voted it down, but in Villa West, I think it was almost close to 70% that wanted to have the streetlights. So we gave the residents the choice, and that's how we proceed. Call it.
Trustee Rashevsky.
Trustee Hill.
Can I, as a resident of Villa West, I'd like to make a comment that, George, how much was the cost of between option B and C? I mean, just roughly.
So the entire project is 630, and it got cut off but just the intersections, I believe, was half that.
Okay, so it's gonna, so to do the, to get all the intersections, it's gonna be about 300,000 to 600,000 to do everything. This is something very close to my heart. At first, I wasn't in favor of any lights, but now I read the comments and talked to some neighbors, and I just want to make the comment that I'm voting for the intersections only. It's kind of a halfway mark, but I mean, a lot of people like having their privacy and no lights. We have to see this kind of light pollution. So that's my comment.
So would you like to make a motion to amend this to option B, or do you want to take a straw poll of whether they want to go with option B or option C? How about this? We'll just do a straw poll. Option B, option C.
I thought this was a straw poll for just to get out.
Well, she made the motion for option C. So,
Well, I would like to make the motion to make it for option B. Or a straw.
anybody want to second that?
Mr. Mayor, question.
Trustee Reed.
Option C was what the vote was.
Correct.
With all due respect, I did not see that.
Do I hear a second? So, with lack of a second, the motion dies, and the vote will still be on option C. So, okay. So, at the end of the day, the option C was what was chosen, and the board obviously is going to vote for option C since they didn't second the option B. So that's what's on the table. Again, it's what the people want in the area. We have a budget, correct? We have a budget. So, and it's very dark there. And I know that you were against all lights until you talked to your you talked to your wife, who cast the vote, by the way. So, any other comments? Trustee Rezoning.
What was the percentage of people who voted for option C?
So there was 61 votes yes, 30 votes no. So which is a
2/3, 67%.
2/3.
Mr. Mayor, was this an option for 4 lights or against lights or half lights?
This was for street lights throughout the city.
Just street lights.
Throughout the
Just
city.
street lights.
The option to go to intersections only is a budgetary concern for us, but not what was presented to the residents. And since they voted 2/3, and most of the other subdivisions have been voting less than half, so we haven't put them in.
Phil West is some great voters here, which I deeply respect.
Yeah, I mean, 91 on 243, that's more than shows up for your election bill.
I know. What? I'm not even going to say never find out competition, so maybe right. But no. So they voted to have lights, but I'm just saying, even some of those that voted yes, prefer having them at the intersections. So.
That was some of the comments made as well. Yes, intersections.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee,
in our other subdivisions in Orland Park, we do our lights as option C, correct?
Yes, most of the neighborhoods are option C, where it's throughout the neighborhoods to include midsection of streets. So we always have coverage of about, for the overlap of the streetlights. There was only a few neighborhoods, as written in the report, that had some areas that were predominantly dark in the midsections of streets, and that's why we surveyed and canvassed those neighborhoods, whether they would be interested in those streetlights being in there.
and if you look at where those are, I mean, those are all the neighborhoods that basically predate me for the most part. Tuckaway, Laguna Woods, Orland Hills, Fairway, Villa West, and Burnway. So all of these things are over 50 years old. So that's why they don't have streetlights. All the newer ones do have streetlights. So this would just be the standard that we have everywhere else.
Yes.
Which is good for public safety. Any other comments? Okay, call the roll.
Trustee Rajewski. Trustee Healy.
Nay.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Mayor Peacock.
Motion carries 6-1. And Bill, luckily, the board covered you, so you won't have to go home and answer your wife.
I'll turn the lights off tonight. Just wait to protest.
A&E Services, Police Department, Fire Range, and EOC Facility Project.
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman,
Trustee Compass.
I move to approve the proposal from Valdez Engineering Company for AE Services, Police Department, Firing Range, and EOC Facility Project for a total amount not to exceed $32,200 for schematic design documents and authorize village manager to execute all related contracts subject to village attorney review and allow the village manager to approve change orders not to exceed the contingency amount.
second.
Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Compass.
just point of clarification, since the third line of this is not to exceed the contingency amount, that there is not a contingency amount listed in the motion. I was just curious what that amount was.
It was 10%, but it was removed. There is no contingency.
Yeah, I think the contingency thing was just a holdover, but since there's not, we don't need to change the motion.
Understood.
Any other comments? Call.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Rashevsky.
Aye.
Mayor Peacock.
Aye.
Water meter replacement policy and procedures.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Reardon.
I move to approve the policies outlined in this report titled Water Meter Policy Procedures as prepared by the Public Works Department.
Any questions or comments? Call.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Rashevsky.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Mayor Peacock.
Aye. And just in case anyone's wondering, we had a discussion on this at the committee of the whole a few weeks back, so that's why there's no discussion tonight.
143rd and Wolf Road, Passive Park Area Rezoning, Development Petition for a Map Amendment for 5 parcels of Village Owned Land to Open Lands.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Katsinas.
I move to adopt an ordinance entitled Ordinance Rezoning Certain Real Estate from E1 Estate Residential and from Biz General Business District to Open Lands, 143rd and Wolf Road, Passive Park Area Rezoning.
Second.
Any comments? And I just want to reiterate what I said the other in the previous meeting, that previously Open Lands Commission members attacked the board for this, actually during election, and I think one of the trustees that has pointed out to me said it was the dumbest decision they've ever seen for some of the decisions we've made regarding this. And again, it's because they have no idea what we're trying to accomplish, that we're trying to negotiate better pricing on these open lands. So we are actually going to protect a very large stand of oaks that are well over 100 years old. So I think it's a pretty good move for the village. And plus, most of these lands are not really buildable; they're mostly wetland and floodplain. So it actually makes sense to do this. Call the roll.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Rashevsky.
Aye.
Mayor Peacock.
Aye.
14101 Wolf Road Annexation.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Compass.
I move to adopt an ordinance entitled Ordinance Annexing Property 14101 Wolf Road.
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Rashevsky.
Aye.
Mayor Peacock.
Aye.
Plat of abrogation for 10441 Emerald Avenue.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Healy.
I move to approve a plan of abrogation for 10409 Emerald Avenue and allow the village staff to execute the plan.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All this really does is take an easement in the back that's quite large, way larger than normal, and shrinks it down to the normal size so that they can actually use their backyard. So that's what that's for. Call roll.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Rashevsky.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
RFP 2022-066 Schussler Park and Centennial Park West Construction Engineer Services.
Mr. Mayor, Trustee Reardon.
I move to approve awarding a contract to White and Company for construction engineering services for Schussler Park and Centennial Park West in the amount of $255,000 to authorize the village manager to enter into a contract with White and Company subject to village attorney review. Second.
Any comments? So originally this was budgeted for what, 850,000? So we got this much cheaper. So I think this speaks volumes to the method that we've taken with engineering to bid like we have qualified bidders. We can see there's one that was around that 850,000 mark, but the other two who are both very good companies were both about the same price. So that's telling us we're getting good pricing here. So I think that was a very good decision we made some time ago. It's saving us a lot of money on engineering. Call roll.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Rashevsky.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
And Ray, could you tell us when these two are going to the planning commission?
The Schussler Park is going in the second meeting in February, and Centennial Park West to go in the first meeting in March.
Okay, great. And that'll keep us on track for finishing both this year.
Right now, we're looking good. Centennial Park West will probably finish more towards next year, 100%. Most of the work will get done this year. Schussler Park is on track for this late summer, early fall.
Okay, great. Hopefully we can move the football teams in this fall. That'd be great.
We're hoping to.
Great.
Summer 2023 program list approval.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Compass.
I move to approve the recommended 2023 summer programs and payment to the contractual vendors as invoiced.
Second.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Compass.
just a quick comment on this, Ray. I'm looking forward to another excellent summer of programs. At first, I was thinking, well, why haven't we looked at doing another program at Cooley Farm? And it occurred to me we're making quite an investment in making several improvements in that space. So that's likely why we're doing it. But just a reminder, I would like to see more programs take place there as well, so it's not the forgotten area.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay. Call roll.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Rashevsky.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
An ordinance providing for the submission of the referendum question of whether the village of Orland Park shall retain the managerial form of government.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Compass.
I move to adopt a resolution entitled "A Resolution of the Village of Orland Park in Support." Sorry. I move consideration of a motion to adopt and approve an ordinance entitled "An Ordinance Providing for the Submission of the Referendum Question of Whether the Village of Orland Park shall retain the managerial form of government." Approval of the ordinance would result in the placement of the question of whether or not to retain the current managerial form of government in the village on the ballot for consideration by the voters of the village at the April 4th, 2023 consolidated election.
Second.
And the actual question is in here. To the ordinance. I just want to read the question so that. So the actual question that will be on the ballot, so people know, is shall the village of Orland Park retain the managerial form of municipal government? And at this point, I'll turn it over to Attorney Walsh to explain what the differences in this are, and then I will give you my rationale for putting this on here.
Thank you, Mayor. The Village of Orland Park is a trustee village. Municipality is provided under the Illinois Municipal Code. In addition to the trustee village form of government, the managerial form of governance was also previously approved for the village by a vote of referendum. Under the managerial form of government, the village manager, and not the elected officials, has the final decision-making authority in key areas. For example, the village manager acts as the administrative and executive head of the village government, and the village manager is responsible to appoint and remove all directors of departments and officers not required to be elected or as otherwise set forth in the municipal code. Under the village manager form of government, the power of the elected board of trustees of the village is purely legislative, except that the board is empowered to approve all expenses and liabilities of the municipality. A village manager in a managerial form of government, like in Orland Park, exercises the final authority for critical administrative and operational decision making, but the village manager serves as a non-elected official, not directly accountable, like the elected officials, to the voters. A village form of government that is not that managerial form places the primary final authority in decision making with the elected village president as the chief executive and administrator of the village, and with the elected president and the elected trustees for the appointment and removal of officers that are not required to be elected. Thus, a village form of government that is not a managerial form makes the elected officials directly accountable to the voters of the village for the key final decision making in the village. By passing this ordinance, you, Mr. President, and the Board of Trustees will have determined that it is in the best interest of the electors in the Village of Orland Park to be given the choice of whether to restore a standard, non-managerial village form of government in the Village of Orland Park, and determine whether the elected officials and not a non-elected village manager should be responsible for the principal, final, executive, administrative decisions of the village and be held accountable to the voters of the village for the proper exercise of that authority. Pursuant to the Illinois Constitution and the Illinois Election Code, the village board can initiate a referendum to be submitted to the voters of the village on the question of whether the village should abandon its current managerial form of government and restore the executive administrative appointment authority and the elected president and the trustees of the Village of Orland Park. That's what this ordinance accomplishes. It allows the voters to make that decision.
Anybody have any questions for the attorney on this? So our attorney noted the impact of voting no on the referendum. It would return us back to the trustee village form of government. And frankly, I was going to put this in. I thought in the last meeting of December, but obviously the election went differently, so we waited until now. But currently, much of the executive authority and responsibility the mayors have in over 1,300 Illinois communities are transferred to a non-elected village manager. When I was elected mayor, because obviously I've lived it more than anyone else, like you and like the voters, I thought that those responsibilities rested with the mayor, who is elected and accountable to the people. I quickly found out that the trustees could hire someone who could, among other things, lock me out of buildings, block my email access, block my access to department heads, and those types of things. In fact, one trustee actually said to me, "You have no authority, you are only here to cut ribbons." Personally, I don't think that's what residents believe or expect, and I think that it's unacceptable. I believe that most people believe that the mayor is accountable for these things, just like a business. I think that along with accountability should come with the authority for making decisions that one is held accountable for. I also want to state for the record that this in no way reflects upon the job that our current village manager does. He works closely with me and the board, and we have a great working relationship. I would expect that our working relationship will not change when if this is voted and it is changed. That's not going to change how we operate on a day-to-day basis. Unfortunately, as I found out the very hard way, and some of you are around for that, village managers don't always work with the board in the manner that George does professionally, and it was a big problem. When this was put in place way back in the mid-'80s, it was a new form of government, and the thinking was the village should bring in a professional manager to run the operations of the village because of the size that we've got. But in fact, this could have been done by simply hiring the village manager and delegating the appropriate authority to them without stripping the legal accountability away from the mayor and the board. So if this referendum is voted against, this is exactly what we would have. We would have the same thing that we had in the 80s, only we would enact. We, as a board, are going to enact an ordinance that would put a village manager in place and delegate authorities to him. But that's something that the board would control, not the state legislature. And personally, I don't want to give the state legislature any more power over the village board of park. So a village administrator would then have the responsibilities as well, and the mayor would still retain the legal responsibility. In any case, it's appropriate for the people to make that choice, because that's what the law provides for. For the reasons outlined, I fully support putting this referendum on the ballot. Any comments from the trustees?
Mr. Chair,
Trustee Thomas.
I think I'm going to end up repeating a lot of what you said, but I do think it's important to hear another voice on this as well. Local forms of government are not well taught in our schools. In civics, we learn about federal and state levels, but many forms of local government are perhaps too numerous to cover adequately at the grade school level. Admittedly, 10 years ago, I maybe had only a passing familiarity with the differences between villages, cities, and towns. To then know and understand the differences between village forms and that the word differences would have seemed pretty esoteric to me. At every municipal election, the residents of our village hold this board accountable by voting. As a representative form of government, I suspect they also believe that the village president or mayor is similarly empowered with direct authority in managing the village. At the federal level, we've heard quite a lot over the last several years around potential for weaponizing agencies of bureaucrats or staff to resist elected officials or those on one side of the political spectrum. What was scary to me a few years back was just how much this can happen and has happened at the local levels as well. But again, I'd also like to echo Mayor Peacock and caveating that my thoughts on this matter are completely distinct from our village manager, George Schussler. I came to this view long before I had the pleasure of meeting George. Were our board to be replaced in the future with those with opposing views, I would not wish for him, George, to be pressured in any way to oppose that leadership. Even the mere potential for that should be taken off the table. The board currently has two major means to ensure our vision for the village: the power of the purse and policy, and the nuclear option of firing the village manager. That last option comes at a cost of severance, so boards would hardly ever exercise it on smaller matters. That becomes an unfortunate game of 1,000 cuts. Past boards certainly understood this. They understood it well enough that they granted a village manager a golden parachute of a 9-month, 6-figure poison pill severance, should they lose the next election cycle. Before I came to serve on this board, I spent nearly a year with Trustee Healy, as well as two previous trustees from the other side of the political aisle, in crafting an ethics ordinance that returned due process to elected officials from potential overreaching staff. I learned quite a bit from that experience and vowed to do all I could after that to oppose ever allowing due process to be denied. The authority granted by the residents of this village should remain with the village president and board, not unelected staff. No more potential for shadow governments, secret investigations, nor blatant subversion of the will of the Orland Park voter. I hold this belief regardless of who sits in that center chair. We, as residents, hold them accountable through our vote. The residents of this village should not be held hostage to severance deals to enact the policies and principles which they elected. Therefore, I believe this form of government should be put before the people so that they can decide how they wish to hold this body accountable.
Any other comments? Mr. Chair. Trustee Lonnie.
I think we're, so far in agreement with on this. I've seen some of the things that have happened in the past, and it's disturbing how we can see, the possibility of having an unelected official, abuse or possibly use his position of power to his advantage. And I think making this change in our form of government will eliminate that possibility. And most importantly, I think it gives the people of Orland Park what they think they have and really what they want, which is making the elected officials directly accountable to the residents and the voters for the key decisions that we make here in the village. And I think, that would be a welcome change to people. And I think understanding what this is and how important this is, if we get it on the ballot, will be key to the success of this. So hopefully we'll be able to get the word out of this on exactly what this ordinance will mean and what this referendum will mean once we get it on the ballot.
Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Healy.
I bore witness being in the audience and then after our election to the, the way things are run here with with a couple different village managers. And in my opinion, I've seen some, things that weren't quite right, and then some other ones. Well, we had Tom Toolby come in and show us, how a village manager should go, and then we had George, and George has been professionalism and all that. Well, this should have been the way from way back, and it's not. I think we're lucky to get George, and I've learned a lot about how a village manager should act by your performance. There will be changes in administration down the road. Over the next 100 years, there's going to be new boards and new thoughts and all that. They may not even all agree with us, but it's definitely something that should be done, in my opinion. And I think it's long overdue. Thanks.
Any other comments? Trustee Radishevsky.
Just really simple. And comfortable should be in the right place. So, and George in the right place. Thank you.
Anything? Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Katsinas.
again,
You don't have to wait for me to say any other comments. You guys can just pipe in.
well, I don't want to be redundant in what Sean and Trustee Campos and Trustee Healy said, but we saw the bad side of this, people abusing perceived power when the residents thought the mayor and the board had the power. It was really kind of mixed up, and I think as Trustee Malani said, you're restoring the power of the people, the voters, already think you have. But boy, did we witness in the first 2 years of Mayor Peacock's being the mayor, sitting in the audience, locked out of buildings, emails coming back. He had more rights as a independent contractor for the village than he did a mayor of the village. So I always think back to that, and I wholeheartedly support this. And I too want to say, George Kazor, our village manager, is outstanding. No way has anything to do with his employment or anything he's done or not done. He's done an outstanding job, and George will continue to do an outstanding job. So this is to bring the power of how people think it is, and also to prevent any more unelected people doing bad things to the state or to the county, and certainly not to the village of Orland Park. Thank you.
Any other comments? So before I bring this to a vote, the one thing I will point out, as Trustee Katsinas pointed out, as an independent contractor, I had access to the Public Works Department for snow, and I was actually locked out of getting in there as the mayor, which that should never happen. And quite frankly, even in a managerial form of government, if it's handled professionally with a professional manager, it doesn't happen. But unfortunately, I lived the side of it where it didn't, and it has the potential for that. So the way that we operate and the way we've operated since George has been here, and since we've even when we had a 4-3 board, but since we hired George, George has operated professionally. We haven't had any of that, so it's not going to change how we operate. But what it is in the future, it's not going to impact me, but it's going to impact potentially mayors in the future, where they walk into a place where they have a board that outnumbers them, like I walked into. And in no shape, I don't think that the people ever vote for the mayor to have the mayor shoved in a corner and a trustee say, "You're here just to cut ribbons." I don't think that's why people elect the mayor. It's certainly not why I've ever elected a mayor, and not why I ran. I was shocked by it, as shocked as anyone. I think most people would be surprised by it. And quite frankly, a professional village manager like George is shocked that would even happen, because the really good village managers are not going to do that. But unfortunately, it can happen, and we experienced it. So we're trying to take that off the table so that it doesn't happen in the future. Call the roll.
Trustee Compass?
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Trustee Reardon?
Aye.
Trustee Radishevsky? Aye. Mayor Peacock?
Aye. Motion carries, and this will be on the ballot in April.
resolution of the Village of Orland Park in support of a tax increment financing.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Getzinas.
I move to adopt a resolution entitled "A Resolution of the Village of Orland Park in Support of Tax Increment Financing."
Second. And just to be clear, this is something that's under constant attack at the state legislature. Aside from the fact that we've talked ad nauseum about them taking away our LGPF and other things, this is one of the few tools that we have for economic development. And it really does not have a negative impact on the other taxing bodies, because nothing from nothing is nothing. And the only way you're going to get development in many cases are TIF. And frankly, the state legislators don't understand this. The governor doesn't understand it. And the IML does fantastic work trying to educate them and push this to make sure it doesn't happen. I can tell you for the last 3 years, they've been working really, really hard to make sure that these changes don't happen, and they continue to do so. This resolution is just supporting that, continuing. And I don't know a single municipality that holds a different view. Call.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Peacock.
And then I have some comments as well here. It's unfortunate that I got to keep making these comments, but at the last meeting, which was over a month ago, I had an update on a fellow by the name of Mike Henry, and where I spoke about the robocalls we were receiving and updated everyone on the court proceedings regarding Mr. Henry and his connections to Jerry Norman, husband of Liz Norman. A reminder that Mr. Henry is a felon convicted of threatening a federal judge, pled guilty to threatening public officials at the IRS, and that a federal judge in Louisiana recommended that Mr. Henry be incarcerated in a federal facility near his home where he could have access to mental health treatments. Since that last meeting, we received another file anonymous robocall. And additionally, Mr. Henry has been quite busy on some other things as well. First, it was 4 emails in a period of about an hour. Among other things, one of these emails said the following: "Please note that as soon as jurisdiction is determined, Keith Pico will be sitting for an 8-hour federal deposition that will address all of his claims, and he will be forced to produce documents supporting all of his statements under penalty of perjury. Cindy Katsinas is second, Sean Morrison is third, Howard Jablecki is fourth, William Healy is fifth, Dennis Walsh is sixth." That was it from his email. Now, attacks on me, Howard Jablecki, and Dennis Walsh are not surprising, because Mr. Henry always attacks me. Mr. Jablecki's been in court, and as is Mr. Walsh, involved in lawsuits with Mr. Henry. But why Cindy Katsinas? Why Sean Morrison? Why are they second, third? Well, the only common theme here is they defeated Mrs. Gorman in elections, further solidifying that connection. Then several days later, my wife, by the way, received a letter from Mr. Henry that was sent to her UPS that accused both her and I of tax evasion and fraud. The following day, I received a letter from Mr. Henry that I accepted a bribe and accused a local business of making that bribe. That business got sent that letter as well. Additionally, that same day, Trustee Healy and Katsinas received an email stating that they knew of the bribe I took and were complicit. Then 2 days after that, I received another letter stating that the village, a local resident, my wife, and I committed tax evasion and fraud. 2 days after that, there was another letter that accuses Trustee Healy, Katsinas, our attorney, and other local business, my consulting company, of tax evasion, bribery, and fraud. Oh, Mr. Walsh as well. And they all came from Mr. Henry. I will note that these letters and the language inside them mirror the robocalls that we've, quote, received anonymously. This nuisance and those that pull his strings are trying to destroy Orland Park businesses. The Village of Orland Park, good people who volunteer, and they've gone directly after my family. They've been trying this since I got in office, and as my wife said on this board floor when the podium was over there, if you think this will make us quit, you don't know us very well. Since then, to date, Cook County refuses to take any action, and I think it's important to note that the actions of Mr. Henry are disturbing to many of us. When you combine that he has sent me over 150 emails, probably totaling over 30,000 pages, over 50 robocalls attacking me, and numerous letters Combine that with his background, his criminal history. In my opinion, Mr. Henry poses a serious threat to my family, to members of this board, and members of this community at large. I am not sure what it takes for the Cook County justice system to act before this individual, who the courts have identified as needing mental health assistance and who has already threatened violent action in the past, does something violent. But for your safety, I will continue to keep you apprised of these menacing robocalls and these actions. Thank you.
Are there any non-citizens or visitors here to speak? Board comments?
Trustee Green. Thank you. Happy New Year, everyone. It's the first time we're seeing everyone in several months. The place looks great. Great job. Public Works, everyone who organized the new facilities, everything looks great. So we appreciate that. I wanted to try to say something when all the families are here. I love when the police department comes in here and the quarterly awards. It's great for the awards, the new hires, and the great things that our police do. But I was taken aback, and I've said it before, and I say it every single time they come here, is I look at the families of these officers, the not young ones, the more senior ones, and you see their grandparents, you see their parents, you see their children, some of them babies that are sitting here. It just strikes me that these gentlemen and these women are out there doing the very difficult, dangerous, hard work for our community and the communities that surround us, because they benefit from that too. And I just get caught looking out there, looking at other people, thinking, this is what their spouse, their daughter, their son, their brother, whoever does. And you can't appreciate it enough when you see all the people here and all the families. So we thank you again for all you guys do at the police department. Thanks. Trustee Healy. First of all, it's very inspirational to me to see the prints on the wall and all that. So it's finally get some patriotic emblems up here that can remind people of the virtues they're supposed to have in government. And it's exciting. And I want to thank the staff and the board for finally agreeing with me on that. We don't agree on everything, it seems, but we'll agree that these prints they make the room. So it's great. We should. I can't wait for more. So the other thing is about when it comes to Mr. Henry, I would appeal to him, and he's probably got friends. Yeah, he would even have some friends, I would think. If his friends could encourage him to get some help, just to try and rationalize or whatever. But there's a sympathetic tone in here, but he obviously it's obvious that those who are at the end of some of these mails, he could use help with a lot of things. Thanks. Trustee Redshaw.
I hope everybody enjoyed their holidays and Happy New Year to everyone. I too want to thank everyone for all of the work that they've done. And this room just looks amazing. It looks really, really nice. You guys did a fabulous job. And getting into an accident and being in a wheelchair, you realize that ramps are important. And so I'm glad to see that we're compliant. And I don't know, it's just it's a nice room. You guys did a really great job, so I appreciate that. I want to also thank all the police officers for all the work that they do, and congratulate everyone for the awards that they've received. And that's it. Thank you, everyone.
Trustee Getzinas.
I just want to remember today's Martin Luther King Day. Remember his contributions to the civil rights movement. Was actually born on the day he gave I Have a Dream speech. And it always strikes me to continue to remember to be judged by your character, not the color of your skin. That's very important. I would encourage people to take a look at our committee of the whole meeting to actually watch the police awards, the outstanding job these officers do. If you pay attention to what the Troop Unit has done in combating crime in Orland Park, it's extremely impressive. And you look at these young men and women. I mean, they could be my kids, Keith's kids, maybe just me and Keith, well, maybe Mr. Heath too. Our kids up there and look so young and so determined and so serious. So thank you to the command staff for all you do, Deputy Chief West, and I would really encourage you to watch that. That's a highlight, and also the life saving award. It really brought tears to a lot of people's eyes. An officer saved somebody from cardiac arrest. So thank you, and turn it over to Mike.
I'll do that next. Yeah, to Trustee Cassius's point, when you see a mother pinning a badge on a son who is potentially younger than you are, certainly younger than Cindy and Bill, it's very, 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 very concerning that we're clearly getting up there in age, and these officers are getting younger and younger. So, Trustee Malani, I should get that chance. Now I get put on the spot. Thanks. Yeah, the award ceremony is a great thing to show, what our police officers go through on a day-to-day basis. But they're not in this job to win awards and to be recognized. They're in this because the best interest in their hearts are everybody in this room, and they believe in public safety and they believe in keeping our residents safe. That's why they're here. So to bring them in here and to showcase their talent and what they do on a day-to-day basis, I think really means a lot to them. So I'm glad everybody was here tonight to do that. Unfortunately, the state has decided to make their job even more difficult now with bringing the Protect Illinois Communities Act into law, and as of January 1st next year, a laundry list of firearms will then be illegal to be possessed. It was interesting today. My wife and I went to the gun range today to get some practice in, and it was a little disheartening when you see 75% of the shelves empty, because they have already started putting away all of the semi-automatic weapons, anything that has a larger capacity than 15 rounds, and everything's a small miniature, semi-automatic weapon. No rifles except for like 22s and maybe some shotguns. The entire store was empty. They've already taken proactive measures to stop selling these weapons, and it's disheartening because we should have the freedom to be able to buy the ones that we want, to be able to protect our families and to protect our livelihoods the way that we think we should. However, the state has decided to just take things into their own hands and do things and what they see fit. So I would say stay tuned. I'm sure we'll have more to say on this. It was very, very upsetting to see today. If you're not familiar with what's coming with this law, I would say go out and get educated and really understand what this is going to mean to you and your family. So that being said, thank you all. Have a great night. Trustee Thomas.
So happy New Year, everyone. I hope everyone has a very great, prosperous 2023. I'd like to share the same thoughts in terms of I personally love these meetings on the committee of the whole, where we have our women and men of the police department here for the recognition. I know we used to do this offsite or not in the village hall. I'm glad that we do that here. And thanks to Deputy Chief West for standing in and doing such a great job today. I think it's important, and I hope that our women and men know just how much this board is proud of them and supports them. I'd also like to say that I can't help but notice that Officer Healy's keeping a strong Healy tradition of a strong mustache game going within the family. We also welcome the new Veterans Commission member tonight. So that reminded me to mention that we always have a military care package active within this village. So if you know someone who is active in military and would like to request delivery, or if you would like to donate your time in putting together these packages, please see our website at orlandpark.org/veterans, or visit here in person at the Village Hall. And lastly, I'd also like to thank everyone involved for putting together this room. I know there were some extra hours and time to make sure this went smoothly tonight. Both I and my neck are very happy. I'm not going to have to do this crane over, see this projector on the side. Now I get to look straight forward and see them. So I think I probably added a few extra years to the vertebrae in my neck. So I'll be appreciative of that. And now I can't help but think, looking at where the directors are positioned, there might be some times where we're getting a side eye. We're not going to know up here if it's earned or if it just happens to be the way that you're seated. So that's going to be an interesting thing to watch in the future. But in all seriousness, thank you all for putting the time and effort into this room. So much brighter, so much nicer to be in.
So thank you all for your comments. I wanted to point out some good news as well. Obviously, the Bridge Team Center Award is the business of the month, and please, support them. Donations for all of our all of the worthy causes are down for sure. Thank former Congressman Newman for coming. And again, it shows that you can disagree on just about everything and still find places of agreement that you can get stuff done. That's when it's the right thing to do for the people. And 143rd Street is going to be a welcome addition, having that money, getting that project started, and hopefully the state of Illinois steps up and finally does what they should have done 20 years ago. I also wanted to point out some other good news in case you haven't heard. Metro adds ahead of 18 trains to the Southwest line, bringing the total to 30 from 12. This includes an express train, not like the one they attempted about a year ago that was like at 9:30 and 3:30. This one's got a little bit bigger spread, more normal hours. Not exactly perfect yet, but we're getting there. I also want to thank the Rauner administration for getting funding from the Trump administration to get that done. And to get the first two of 4 segments. I think there's still 2 more that aren't fully funded yet that will allow for even more. But it was their work and Dan Lipinski's work as well. Again, both sides of the aisle, and all of the community partners, which included the city of Chicago and the county of Cook and everybody that worked to get that done, to get that flyover project funded. And yes, it's been going on for a really long time. It's like I said, it's not yet finished, but it is far enough along to get us to this point. I also again want to thank our police officers for their service and Officer Healy. So I was thankful he didn't get an award for stopping me for putting up one of my signs when they were all being stolen. So he was being very diligent, and he pulled up and said, "Oh, it's you." So great work by all the officers. And some of you may not have seen our post about an airsoft gun. I noticed several comments ridiculing our officers and or attacking their profession on this post. Let me tell you, the cowards that posted this would have crapped themselves if they had that gun pointed at them. I want to thank our department and its officers once again for their professionalism and restraint that again saved someone's life. Someone who was likely trying to get themselves killed. If you've never had a gun that looks like a gun pointed at you, well, that's what it looks like. And they showed amazing restraint. So thank you so much, and thank the whole department for that. We're all very proud of you. We all appreciate it. I will reiterate that I am hopeful that now the village has found more funding for a state road, that the state will finally fund this project. Being that it's not only the #1 project for the Village of Orland Park, but it's the #1 project for all of the Southwest Conference of Mayors since I've been mayor. Will County actually gives us support at the expense of their own roads to support it. Because if you look from I-57 all the way to 355, Will County's already funded from Bell Road all the way to State to widen that. They've already funded it. The project's in the works. Okay. The only place it's not funded is to be 5 lanes wide, is Southwest Highway to Will Cook in that whole stretch, the busiest stretch in the whole area. Makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. So it's time for the state to get off their rear ends on that. I also want to thank everyone here in the boardroom and everyone who's not in the boardroom who worked really hard on these renovations. It looks fantastic. I know there's still a few things to do. The artwork is phenomenal, and most importantly, Trustee Healy is impressed with the artwork, which is quite important. I will also point out that we have the old Cooper Farm, which is Deputy Chief West's wife's family farm. So a long history in Orland Park. And then we have the saloon, which Bill Healy might have frequented when he was younger. And then we also have the Bill of Rights. We have the Declaration of Independence, and then we also have the Gettysburg Address over here in the corner where I can't see. So outstanding job on all of that, and Trustee Healy should be very happy. I know he's upset there's no murals, but Bill, we did what we could for now. Okay.
I want to be a local hero by pulling out those some of those lights, but I'll still keep that. The new audio and video. Apologize for any hiccups we have this week. It's going to make the room much more useful for many of our meetings. And also the display case, if you didn't notice,
In the front lobby is a nice addition. People can get a feel for Orland Park history, and we can rotate various things in and out of there. I did notice there's a 1976 overhead view, which looks right at my family's uh, the home where I grew up, so you can kind of see the whole area and how it's changed. And at that point, the mall was built, but most of the rest of the stuff on the Grange, so you can actually see LaGrange, two-lane road on that. So thank you to Sarah for arranging those displays. Lastly, it is Martin Luther King Day, and I want to leave you with a quote that seems appropriate given our current political environment. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Thomas.
I move to go into executive session for A, approval of minutes, B, the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performances, or dismissal of specific village employees, C, collective negotiating matters between the village and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary structures for one or more classes of employees, D, security procedures to respond to a danger to the safety of the public or village staff or property, E, pending litigation against, affecting, or on behalf of the village, or when found by the board that such action is probable or imminent.
Second. Call the roll.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Compass. Or excuse me, Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye. Go into executive session, and I can see right into finance where all the sausage is made. So. Okay, we'll reconvene the meeting. Call roll.
Trustee Healy. Trustee Katsinas.
Here.
Trustee Malani.
Here.
Trustee Compass.
Here.
Trustee Reardon.
Here.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Here.
Mayor Pico.
Here. Who's got the motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Malani.
move to approve the agreement, settlement agreement, and the resignation agreement by between the village of Orland Park and Brian Quinn.
Second.
Call roll.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Thomas.
I move to approve the severance and lease agreement by and between the village of Orland Park and Ketchum.
Second.
Call roll.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Thomas.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Call roll.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.